Welcome, Saakshi. Saakshi is an educational psychologist at American Embassy. She's earned her MSc degree from UK and is also part of an organization called Happy Minds. We welcome you, Sakshi. I hope you're in good health. And so I just wanted to kind of set the motion for this discussion. No. How is mental health affecting the children in COVID? I mean, this is one sector we haven't really been concerned about as seriously as we are of the generic population can.
Right.
So,
First of all, thank you, Namita, for such a beautiful introduction. I truly acknowledge that. And good evening to all of you out here. I'm sure you are all here because you have a teenager with you, or you're associated to any teenager or preteen or a young adult amongst your families. So I'm quickly going to address what is this COVID-19 for a young mind. I mean, for all of us, it's a pandemic. I mean, we all know the ratios. We all know how is it going and how quickly it's spreading. But for a young adult, like if I see it from a lens of a small child, for them, I mean, the other day I was having conversation with my little niece and I was asking her what actually it is. And she came to me, it looks like something which came from China. And I mean, that's what their understanding is about this issue. And we are throwing all sorts of responsibilities, big responsibilities onto their shoulders regarding staying indoors, wearing a mask while going out, and missing on to all their leisure time and all their nature time, basically, which is very close to their heart, basically. So I think it is worth mentioning and acknowledging that what sort of mental pressure a young child or a preteen is going through during this tough time of pandemic, and specifically about the fact that it's so much away from their understanding to actually understand its core, that why are we staying indoors. I mean, one of the yesterday itself I received a phone call regarding a counseling session of a parent, and the child was just complaining about the fact mama always keeps telling me to stay indoors. She also shouted on me. She once slapped me also. Like, look at the extent. But the child is not able to register that why are we staying indoors after all? What is the roots behind it? So I mean, it's very important for the kids to actually understand its roots. I mean, there are movies available over the web, beautiful movies are coming up to explain all this pandemics. What is it about actually? But interestingly, those movies are obviously for the adults. So I mean, during my sessions, I mean, about all the kids who are coming to me during this particular time, I have composed few games, few crossword puzzles about COVID-19, and how are we going to stay at home, and then they solve those puzzles, and that's how their understanding becomes much more concrete through play. I mean, it's very difficult for them to register it when I just tell them to stay indoors. But when I infuse it with a play, it's like the other day they're telling me to stay indoors. Ma'am, were you indoors? And are you wearing a mask? So it's beautiful how little games can just reach directly to their hearts, and we do not have to do much of the work.
oh, beautifully put, Sakshi there. I just wanted to kind of understand any kind of mental anxiety or depression has always been
Right.
attached to the adult world. You
Right.
know, like the people feeling anxious about their future, maybe an interview, a
Correct.
presentation. I just wanted to understand: do children also suffer from anxieties, and how huge is the magnitude of the same?
Okay, so I think that we all acknowledge the stress and storm which a preteen or a teen who is in his adolescence age goes through. Obviously, there's so much going on in schools. But I mean, it's very important to understand that a little child is also going through a lot during this time. I mean, there are issues regarding some of them are able to speak it out. Some of them are literally bursting out, which is in a way good. Like they are speaking their hearts out. They are having conflicts. They're shouting at their parents, which is mentally healthy, I believe. But some of them, a few of them, are just bottling it up, and they're silent. They're sitting at home silently. So I believe that's what is leading to a bigger mental health issue here. And which further, I mean, if you're sombre for like once in a blue moon, I mean, in psychology we call it a period of 2 weeks. So if a child is sombre, by sombre I mean not talking, his or her sleeping patterns are disturbed, his eating patterns are different. So if it lasts for just 2 days, 2 to 3 days, or once in a blue moon, it's perfectly fine. It's normal, nothing to worry. We are all human beings. We experience different emotions. But if it lasts for more than 2 weeks, then it's surely the time for the parent to seek for a professional help.
Oh,
So I
oh,
mean that's how they can resolve. I mean that's what this fine line between ignoring the issue and actually acknowledging the issue is. I mean these days it's very interesting actually how people deal with mental health, particularly in India. So if we have fever, like I mean, I've been I've been born and brought up in an intellectual Brahmin family, and here I mean, our mothers are all prone to all these home remedies. So if we get fever or cold, we usually heal it within our homes for 2 to 3 days. Like, what do you call that? Nani ke nuske. Yeah, we do that. We do that a lot in Indian households.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I mean, we do that with fever. And after 2 to 3 days, I'm sure if the fever is not yet healed or it's not okay, then we would obviously take a professional help. Right. But why not for mental issues? Like, why not for mental health? I mean, it's equally important, and it's much more important because the physiology of the child is totally linked to the mental health.
True,
And
true.
it's amazing once the mental health of the child is sorted, he or she tends to thrive in all other aspects. And it's really amazing the journey, how we see it, how we see the child thriving, progressing. It's just amazing how mental health is the key to all other aspects of life.
Wow. Wow. Sakshi, I mean, you gave a different perspective there, but yeah, I mean, I kind of acknowledge the fact that in India, mental health is not only not taken seriously, but at some level it is also ridiculed. That is
Right,
what Humanizing Lies is trying to do, kind of bring in that awareness amongst people of various
correct,
sections and age
right,
groups. But I kind of want to very closely understand. When we are talking about children and a parent relationship, we are
right,
categorizing children into this one group that can express itself, and then there's this
right,
another group that cannot.
right,
So
right,
maybe the ones up till the age of 8, and then the ones that go up till the age of 17, 18.
right,
How do you communicate these complexities and importance, the seriousness of
right.
lockdown, hand washing, no school, etc.? How do you communicate such grave changes that are coming across to these
Correct.
young minds?
Right. Very rightly put, Namita. I mean, in this verge of 21st century, I think all the children starting from young age till the preteens, I think they all share a hi-bye relationship with their parents. Like they would just simply say a hi, and then once they're going off to sleep, they'll just bid them goodbye, and that's the only conversation they're having with their parents, which is very sad actually to see. And it's important specifically in this during this time to communicate. I mean, obviously, like I hear parents having a conversation with their child, and they are repeatedly asking what's wrong. And the terms which is commonly used here is chinta mat karo, sab theek ho jayega. But for the child who has this limited mindset, I mean, that sounds like complete trash. I mean,
Yeah.
because for the child, it's a big issue. It's like their little tiny world. And you're saying, sab theek ho jayega, how, when, where? I mean, all these stimulants keep firing in that little head. So it's very important that the parents understand that. And I think listening is the key here. So listening is actually the key. I mean, this reminds me of a very famous campaign by a Bollywood celebrity named Bar Bar Pucho Fir Se Pucho. So, I mean, if the child does not reply, I mean, obviously he's going through a lot. So, bar bar pucho, fir se pucho. Ask them again, communicate, ask. And listening can really help the child. I mean, this can really act as a big help for the little child who's already going through a lot, right? So, the parents can be good listeners. I mean, whenever I'm having my counseling session with kids, I always ask the parents one question: are you ready to become a co-therapist? Because I am not living with them. I'm just meeting them on regular basis and once in a blue moon, obviously. But the parents, they need to be their co-therapist. They have to deal with them. They have to see their physiology. They have to analyze their sleeping patterns, what they are eating and how much are they eating. Are they binge eating or they are depriving themselves? So all these things parents need to keep a check on. I mean, it's very important these days specifically. And the kind of relationship the child shares with their parent, I think it's a great opportunity right now to actually nurture and enhance the bond between the child and the parent relationship. I think it's a beautiful opportunity. I mean, I see it in my house. Like these days, we are spending time with my father. He tells us stories from all his experiences, and it's beautiful to know. And we have been missing all this time, all this leisure time, all our life because we all have been busy with our work. So I think we
True.
should mindfully utilize this particular time to actually work on our relationships other than anything else, because this time will not come back. So I mean, I think working on relationship is a good thing to do during this time.
Okay. Sakshi, from there, I would like to pick out the next question. So, how does family interaction pattern, like every family is very unique in itself in the
Correct.
way that it interacts with the toddler, interacts with their teenage
Right.
children, and so on and so forth. So, how does this interaction pattern that is part of the cultural conditioning of a family shape a child's later interpersonal skills? How does that impact?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Very beautiful question, Amita. I mean, I would also like to share about my research about the same. I mean, it's a very interesting research I did during my master's. It was a comparative study between kids of UK and kids of India. So during that research, we found out that the achievement motivation of the child is actually correlated. It's literally, I mean, it goes hand in hand with the performance of the child. And where is all that achievement motivation coming from? Obviously the parents. I mean, the
Mm.
parents needs to fill the jar to the optimum ever since the child is small. So I mean, the parent can do healthy, they can have healthy boundaries in the house, like what time will the child sleep, what time will the child get up. And obviously with teens and young adults, they can also have some boundaries in terms of privacy of the child, because these are some major issues that we are facing during this time in terms of adolescence. So we can they can have some sort of ground rules for the house, which can avoid further controversies. And in terms of having a healthy relationship between the parent and the child, I think restitution is one thing which works best. So I know it's a bizarre term for most of you, restitution. So I mean, this is basically a term which is used for parenting. I mean, I believe that it's the best tool to parent the child. So during this process, what we are actually, if we are practicing restitution in our parenting styles, I think it works best for all sorts of families. First of all, like all sorts of families can actually practice it. So it is very easy to practice. In restitution, we talk about how do we counsel the child without making the child feel small. So during our regular scolding patterns, obviously it's a small child, they will make mistakes, they will be naughty, they will do all sorts of mischiefs. But, and obviously the parents have to raise their voice. I mean, if the parents will not do definitely the relatives will help in that. So I mean, the scolding pattern will go on, but how to do a mindful scolding is what makes the difference in the parenting process. So when you're parenting the child through this beautiful process of restitution, so you counsel the child and the child comes out of your scoldings or counseling very strong. So I mean, during this process, if you're not liking any pattern the child is following, so you have to say around five things bad, five things good, I'm sorry, five things good and one thing bad. So it's a 5:1 ratio that the parent has to follow, and that's how they counsel the child. So if you say you do not get up early, you do not drink your milk, you're not doing your dishes properly, and you're part of the work properly, and you're not even paying attention to the homeschooling. So if you'll keep on nagging the child, there'll be a lot of negative emotion that'll be developed inside the child, which will anyway hamper the growth. So I think the most beautiful and the best way to parent is through restitution. And in here, we are trying to interweave our communication. We are interweaving the positive and the negative communication. And I think it works beautifully because the child never feels low. Because, I mean, there's a very famous saying, Namita, I mean, they talk about if you say something bad to an adult, that child will think you are that adult will think you are bad. But if you say something bad to a child, the child, till the child grows older, the child will think that the child itself is somebody who's bad, somebody who's not worth
You
it.
can internalize it. Yes.
Right, right. And I see a lot of teens these days carrying their childhood baggages, which is actually quite disturbing to acknowledge and to see during this process. I mean, it's very hard to see actually that most of the kids are carrying some sort of childhood baggage. Maybe they have faced comparison during their childhoods. And I think most of us have. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's very important. It's very, very important to mindfully parent the child while interweaving the positive and the negative. And I would like to repeat here, it's the ratio of positive is to negative is 5:1. So if you're saying five things bad, if you're saying five things good, then only you are allowed to say one thing bad. I think that's what the measuring scale is.
Okay, so that's the key we are going to take here from you, which is 5:1. Five good things and
Right,
one
right,
bad thing. And that too politely put, for all I understand from your conversation. Uh,
right.
uh, at this point, let me remind our viewers here, audiences, you all are allowed and welcome to ask questions. We will be taking it up. Also, Sakshi, taking the conversation forward here.
Right.
We come from a culture where we do not exactly give much of an importance to the child's observations. Like I have grown up in that environment where, I have friends and even myself, a lot of times we were told to kind of shut up and listen.
Right,
you
right,
know.
right,
So, in this kind of a culture where an intelligence of a child is continuously undermined, if nothing
right.
prevalent than that, how does a family really get to know whether a child is throwing a tantrum, or he has deeper lying issues, or she has deeper lying issues? And this is a child who's probably under 8 years of age. And
Right,
then a second I want you to, deal with the categories separately. So under
right.
8, and then in the teenage.
Okay, okay, right,
Yeah.
right. So, thank you for the question, Namita. So, like when we are catering with kids who are under 8, there are high probabilities that the child will show tantrums. There are high probability because I mean they are in the process of growing up. They face different things. They face all sorts of changes, and we are expecting a lot out of them. Like they're not really adults, but we are expecting them to act like adults, which is not really settling in very well in their brains. Like, I mean, why should I sit in a certain manner when I feel like sitting in a way in which I feel like sitting? So I think it's very important for the parents to give them space to be natural. I mean, I have always been a believer of a naturalistic approach while the child is being educated at home and also at school. So I think it is very important for the that the child gets some space, or I mean, how they explore their surroundings. So like we can pick up cues of what they like and what they dislike while we have just left them in the garden. I mean, obviously under we are watching them. So like I mean, it's very important to give them enough space to explore their own understanding. And as per their tantrums are concerned, I would like to say that if it's a repeated pattern, if the pattern is going on for like 2 weeks or so, then it's fine. But if the child is showing some patterns for a prolonged period of time, for example, if the child is feeling to stay happy for a prolonged period of time, then we can obviously, as we do in the fever, as we talked about in the fever part, that we try some home remedies. The same way, when we talk about mental health, we have some home remedies for that as well. Like, I mean, I'll talk about one here. It's a self-care jar. So, I mean, kids, yeah, I mean, I suggested to all my kids, been taking therapies from me. So, it's a self care jar where we put up all sorts of chips of all the things that we like, and I make the list specifically for each child in terms of their likings, like what they like to see, what they like to hear, and what they like to taste, what they like to smell. So, again, infusing NLP into it. So, that's how we construct these games, and we bottle up a couple of things, like we bottle up chits, colorful chits, like taking a bubble bath, drinking your favorite shake, or maybe taking a walk in the park, hugging your parents, like beautiful things we put up in that. And obviously all of them which the child is very passionate about doing. And we put them in a jar, so probably 100 sort of things, and we put them in a jar, a big jar. And whenever the child is feeling sombre, so they come to that jar becomes very dear to them. They're very close to that jar. Like some of them, the mothers told me that they keep the jar with them while they're sleeping. So very beautiful experiences. And they pick out one shit out of it, probably once in a day, and whatever comes in, they start doing that. Because engagement here, I think engagement is the key here. When I'm talking about kids who are under 18, engagement is very important. They need to be engaged in something or the other. And obviously with our modern mindsets where the mothers are also working, so it gets very tough for the mothers to have enough activities for the child. I mean, how much games will they prepare? How many DIYs do they do? So I think the self-care jar is a thumbs up, and it works fantastically for kids who are under 8. And it's very important that they actually see that what emotion is going on. So we have also have this wheel where we put up all the emotions: happy, sad, angry, boredom. And along with that wheel, we put up some sort of suggestion that when you're angry, you do this particular activity, and when you're sad, you're supposed to do this particular activity. So it's sort of a wheel. And sometimes kids do not understand what emotion are they going through, so they just spin the wheel, and then whatever comes, they do that. So I mean, it's I think games are the best way to keep the child indulged. And like these two games that I suggested, I think all the mothers should make that for the child. I mean, it is really helpful. Like the self-care jar, even I use it. I mean, I believe all of us are little child inside, so even I use it, and I gifted one to my mother as well.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I mean, it works for everybody. That's the magic, and specifically for the young kids. I mean, it's very important. Now coming on to the teens, so above 8 and the preteens. So like their issues are little different. They are having relationship issues. They are having interpersonal issues. They are having intrapersonal issues, and obviously they are going through a lot. Like adolescence in itself is marked as a period of stress and storm. So I mean, if I talk about those kids, they are actually going through a lot of changes deep inside them. So what works best from them is listening again. So I mean, you need to talk to the child. Maybe take them for a cup of a coffee. I mean, they may not open up at home. They may not open up at home. But if you tell them, okay, let's go for a cup of a coffee and have a chat, they might open up beautifully. They may spill all their secrets and their problems at the same time. And in order to cultivate positive mental health for kids who are above 8, I think gratitude therapy works best here. So I mean, I gratitude therapy also, Namita. We researched about gratitude therapy with the Scottish kids, and we understood during that research that the Scottish kids who were actually practicing gratitude for 21 days. So 21 days is the period that we mark for any habit to be formed.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
right. So we all do that. We were experimenting that what happens like 21 days we practice something else. Then 21 days we did the gratitude therapy. So in the gratitude therapy, what we actually did was that we asked the kids to think of just 3 things that they are grateful for. It can be anything. It can be the house they are living in.
Your voice went, Saakshi.
Now,
No.
okay. Are you able to hear me now?
Is Saakshi audible to everybody else, or is it just me?
I hear a buzzing sound from the other end actually.
No, you're not audible at all.
Okay, I'm not audible at all.
Let me.
Am I audible now?
No.
Okay. Hello. Yes, audible. Somebody wrote yes, audible.
Okay, I think the audiences can hear you. For some reason, I can't.
Okay, okay. Maybe some technical error, Namita. Shall I continue? Okay, okay. So I was talking about the issues faced by the preteens and how we can help them. So I think gratitude therapy works best. In the gratitude therapy, what we actually do is like we encourage the kids to think of just 3 things that they are grateful for. It can be really small things like having food, having enough food to eat, having proper shelter to live, and having a lovely family. So most of the kids are grateful to have that, and they just repeated this pattern for 21 days. And it was very interesting to see that how magnificently their brains rewired to think of something positive. I mean, it was very shocking that those kids were thriving. They were thriving in their academics, and they were doing really well physiologically as well. And it was very beautiful journey to see how gratitude therapy is helping the young adults.
Okay, Saakshi, little bit of technical challenge we are facing here. We have just been joined by Dr. Meenakshi Ahuja,
Okay.
who is a gynecologist. We
Right.
welcome you to the show, ma'am. Now, bringing you back to the discussion, I am only trying to do all I can from my end since I can't hear you. But something that we caught on to in your conversation about, you know, the tantrum issues, etc.
Right.
We all come from the cultures in India wherein, you know, we have all been kind of asked to shut up and behave and not engage
Right.
any further than that. So in the period of lockdown or COVID, you know, some of us have smaller houses, some of us
Right.
have, you know, bigger houses with more people in it, etc. So keeping them engaged in itself is a challenge enough for the parents. How
Right.
do you then kind of, and I want you to elaborate on specific activities like you did for the youngsters, how does one deal with rebellion phase of the teens? You know, they're not ready to listen to you. They're not ready to engage themselves in,
Right.
and thanks to electronic medium, they've got multiple other distractions to keep them busy. So please tell us something about that.
Right. So, I mean, preteens here in India, I see that they are Netflix binging a lot these days, and they're otherwise also food binging a lot. So, I think what works best for preteens is that they inculcate this habit of journaling. I mean, journaling is one thing which works best. By journaling, I mean keeping a track of all your activities and planning your activities one day in advance. I mean, during this journey in a Happy Little Minds, I give customized journals to my kids, and like so that they have a track of what is to be done next, what they have planned for tomorrow. So I think when they see a particular plan and particular habit that is ahead of them to be joined, so that works fantastically for them. And they can make different sorts of journals, like everyday journal. I mean, yesterday only there was this child who was very keen to learn English. Like, that child was very passionate about learning new words in English, so we had this vocabulary journal for that child, so that the child actually writes all the new words that the child is learning and their meanings and the other details of that particular word. So we call it like being friends with the words, right? So that's what we do in vocabulary journal. Then I also
Oh, we also lost her. I'm really sorry. I'm facing a serious technical glitch here. Let me just reconnect the guest to you all again. I'm really sorry for this unforeseen technical problem. Sakshi, please go on. I'm really sorry. I lost you midway.
Okay, sure. So I was talking about journaling. So journaling really helps when we are talking about pre-teens here. So I believe they can maintain different sorts of journal. I mean, it takes just 21 days. Again, I'll repeat that. It takes 21 days to actually get into the habit. They might throw tantrums during the early days, but later on, it will just work like magic. I mean, they are in that habit. Their brains are rewired to do that particular thing. Their brains are rewired about what they really want. So I mean, journaling really helps. They can have different sorts of journal, like vocabulary journal. They can have gratitude journal. They can list things about which they are grateful for, because I think it's a beautiful opportunity to actually introspect and look inside what strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats are we all blessed with, specifically in terms of teens. I think the parents should just maintain a healthy library and a healthy Netflix binging sort of moderator for them, so that they know what they're actually going into their head. I mean, I'll put it in a very simple way, Namita. I mean, do we eat trash? Do we eat trash? No, none of us. But why are we putting trash into our head? By watching those kind of series, by watching those kind of movies, or maybe reading something which is not really good for their mental health. So I mean, they need to use the social media consciously. I mean, I think the boys' locker room incidents is not to be missed here. I mean, all sorts of ungrateful things are happening in the society, which are worth our I mean, attention, and we cannot ignore them. So it's very, very important that whatever they are watching, whatever is going into their mental health, is being watched by the parents, and it's mindfully consumed. The way we consume mindfully through our mouth what we eat, we should also be mindful about what we are watching over the web and what they are actually consuming. What sort of movies are they watching?
Okay. Sakshi, I am becoming an expert in lip reading right now, so
Oh my
mindfulness.
God, I'm so sorry about that, Namita.
Please
I'm
don't,
so
we,
sorry
please
about
don't.
it.
We'll continue with the session as planned. And
Right.
I think we can manage because it's the
I think
viewers
the
are
rest of the
12.
participants are able to hear me. I mean, I see my two sweet
You try
siblings commenting. They can hear me. They are listening to me from the next room. I mean, I can see them writing. We can hear you. So I think the rest of them are able to hear me. Are you all able to hear me?
Yeah, you people can hear you. It's just me who cannot
Okay,
hear
it's
you.
just you. Oh, Namita, would
So
you
I would
want
also
to?
request, yes, I would also request yes, that I understand you all can hear her. That I have understood. Therefore, we are
Right,
continuing with
right,
the
right.
session. Um, yes, we are not interrupting the session at all. We'll continue with the
Right.
session as it is
Okay.
going.
Right.
However, it would be really helpful to me trying to host this show to please, ask, invite um, the audiences for questions. That is going to help
Right,
me a
right,
great
right,
deal. Uh,
right,
Now, so moving on to the next question, which is also
right.
very important, and
Okay,
irrespective of what is it that we kind of method that we use in dealing with the children of impressionable age. I really, really want to understand, because we have increasing number of adults dealing with anxiety, depression, and all sorts of mental problems.
right.
And like you said, most of these problems are basically picked up from their childhood or teenage
Right,
years.
right, right.
I really want to understand how early can one get professional help, and will that
Okay,
really help in bringing about stronger adults, more balanced
okay,
adults?
right, right. Okay. So again, Namita, I would say that the parents should first try to deal the issue at home. Like first, they should deal the issue at home. They should first try to analyze. I think the most visible effects that we see from the early stages is this disturbed sleeping pattern, disturbed eating patterns, and obviously the change in physiology. So the parents can actually keep a check on the child's sleeping pattern and have a journal. They can maintain a journal about the child, and they can observe the same for approximately 2 weeks. And if it goes on longer than 2 weeks, then I think it's the right time for them to seek a professional help. The sooner the better. Same like all ailments, the sooner the better. So it's always suggested to seek for professional help at the early stages and not to ignore it for later on.
Okay.
Yes, Namita. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just taking a cue that you're probably done with your
Yes, I'm.
answer.
I'm really sorry that you have to go through this, Namita.
No,
I
why
really
are you
feel
sorry?
sad.
You have nothing to be apologetic about.
Yeah.
If anything, this is a technical glitch on my
Yeah,
end.
I mean, we face that
So
every day. I mean,
yeah.
technical
So
issues.
what are the telltale signs? What are like clear signals that
Okay,
a child
right.
needs help, like
Okay,
professional help and no kind of home therapy is
right,
going to work
right.
here?
Okay, right. So I mean, the clear signs, the signs that are like visible. I mean, obviously, please do not panic if you see them once in a blue moon. I repeat again and again. Do not panic if you see the child having those symptoms once in a blue moon. That's perfectly normal. We are all humans there. We experience turmoil of emotions, and nothing to worry if you spot them once in a blue moon again. But if you see them in a repeated way for approximately 2 weeks, then it's the right time for you to seek for professional help. And the signs that are clear cut, visibly seen, are the signs of, I mean, when the kids experience breakouts, they start crying. I mean, you don't say them anything, and they're like, you see them the next moment, you see them crying. So the sudden breakouts without any reason is a clear sign of anxiety, and which can further lead to depression. So I think it may lead to depression. I'll again not use the word depression because it needs to be clinically checked first. So frequent breakouts, binge eating or not eating at all, uh, difference in physiology. You will see the child maybe becoming overly weighted or maybe becoming extremely thin. So these are some signs, because every time when we are experiencing something mentally, it comes on our body. The physiology always reflects back, right? So I mean, it comes on the body, and the skin particularly shows all aspects of your mental health. And while whatever they are eating, we can keep a check on that, whether they are binge eating or they're not eating at all. And I think isolation is one thing which is very common amongst these kids. They tend to isolate themselves from everybody. They'll probably sit in one corner of the room, or they'll just cut down from their friend circle without any reason at all. It's really sad to see such sort of things happening, and the kids are dealing with that. And it's something which is not to be taken as a taboo. I mean, a lot of mothers complain that when we are coming to you, I mean, our families ask this question, are they going to Dimag ka doctor or what? So it's very disheartening to hear such sort of stories, that it's completely okay if you're seeking a professional help for your mental health. It's completely fine, and it's completely healthy, first of all. And we should, if we see the signs, we should not bother taking the mental health services. So, I mean, we should always work on breaking that taboo and the stigma which is always associated with the mental health, and not with any ailment which is related to us physically. So, I mean, it's very important that the parents see it this way and acknowledge it first. I mean, for some parents, it gets very hard and very harsh to actually accept the problem of the child. Like, they do not accept it. Okay, I mean, hypothetically, if the child is diagnosed with ADHD, I mean, I see mothers not being able to accept the fact, Namita. I mean, it's very harsh and extremely depressing to see that, to acknowledge that they do not take it very well. So I think parents should be very responsive and very accepting towards the child of whatever happens to them, because that's the key. If you accept it first, the fear part goes away, because everything, the anxiety is just nothing. Anxiety is the fear of having and facing fear in the future in an unfearful situation. So you are in your closed space in your house, but you are thinking about something which may harm you. So that's what anxiety actually is. So, I mean, if you cut down that fear by actually accepting it, okay, I have this problem, and we will go through it together. So I think that's how we deal with certain issues here, Namita. And acknowledging them, respecting them, and accepting them is the first key here. And then it will lead to recovery, and further on leading a happy and blissful life.
Oh, thank you, Sakshi. That was amazing. Sakshi, to conclude this conversation, if I was to, let's say, ask you to give our listeners about 5 takeaways that they can go back home with. It can be in form of games that you're handing them,
Okay.
or it
Right.
could be in form of suggestions. So there
Right.
are 5 takeaways for the listeners
Okay.
that they can go back home with to their kids.
Right. Okay. I'll be happy to share that. So, the first thing I would like to share here is the positive emotion. I think positive emotion works best. I mean, in dealing with any situation. So we can practice positive. I mean, practicing positive emotion in a way that we are practicing positive self-talk with ourselves and the people who are associated with us. So I think maintaining a positive emotional health and a positive self-talk always work. I mean, how you can have a positive self-talk and a positive emotion, that's another question here. So I would like to suggest some sort of thing, like you can have a certain word that is associated to you. I mean, we do that in our activities for the teens here. So any word may be strong, may be powerful, because every child is actually looking forward to achieve something. They want to be strong, they want to thrive. Any positive words, whichever comes to their mind. So they can write that word maybe on a sticky in their room, or maybe they can form a bookmark, or maybe put that word as their wallpaper. So something that they see very often. So that word is going to lead to positive emotions here, right? So
Okay.
this is the first thing here, which is positive emotions, which leads to positive mental health again. The second thing I'll talk about here is engagement. So for engagement, it is very, when we are in flow. I mean, I read this beautiful book called Ikigai. It's based on Japanese philosophy of living for hundreds of years. I mean, as we all know, Japanese are people are pro in that. So I mean, it's based on that. So I picked it up from there. It's about flow. I mean, and flow comes when you're actually engaged in a particular activity that you're really passionate about. So I think just trying on different sorts of activities, different hobbies, or maybe baking, or maybe anything at all, just keeping yourself busy. I think that's another key to develop a positive outlook towards life. So engagement will be the second tool here, Namita. The third tool I'll talk about here is relationships. I think
Yeah.
it starts with it starts from a very young age. I mean, when we are kids, we have a special sort of relationship with our family, with our parents. So I think one should always fuel those relationships, because I believe that relationships are a very important source of giving you positivity, a good outlook towards life. At the same time, if the relationship part of your life is little unhappy or not good, not at place, it can affect the other aspect of your life to a great extent, more than you can imagine. So it's very important that whatever relations you have, obviously try to keep them as limited as you want to, but keep them flourished, keep them nourished. Fuel them like the way we always fuel our plants. So the same way, relationships needs to be nourished day by day by doing sweet gestures for our family and friends. So the third aspect that I've talked about is relationship. The fourth aspect is again ikigai, that is meaning. So I'll talk about meaning. It's very important that the child from a very young age tends to seek meaning in their life, right? So they're just trying different things. So it's very interesting. I experiment all these things on my niece, by the way, Namita. It's very interesting to experiment everything on her first. So one day she comes to me, I want to be a princess, and the other day she comes to me, I want to be a lawyer. So that's how the pedagogy of the young child keeps on shifting, and it's beautiful to see that how they're experiencing different emotions and having something to look forward in life. So it's very important to have a purpose and meaning to life, right? So that was my fourth aspect, having a purpose and meaning to life. The fifth aspect that I'll talk about in terms of maintaining a positive mental health is achievement. So reward system works best here, like celebrating needs to be explained. Okay, somebody commented that meaning needs to be explained. Okay, I'll do that. So in terms of meaning, I would like to pick up the fact that the child needs to experiment with the meaning that they want out of life, what they actually want. I'll put it in a simple way that I think all of us have some motive in life. We all come for a particular reason, and that's why we are born. That's what I believe. And so, what is that motive? Why are we here? So keeping the scientific temperament active at all times, and always hunting and being keen about something, and looking for something. Looking what's next. Okay, this does not work out, now what's next? So having new hobbies and just analyzing and seeing what works best for me. Okay, mama, now I don't want to be a baker, now other day I want to be a lawyer because I found this article very interesting. So their hobbies keeps on changing, and it's good if it's changing. They do not have to fixate, they need to keep experimenting, and they should be given enough resources and space to actually experiment with their hobbies and talents in order to search for meanings in their lives, right? So that was the fourth aspect. The fifth aspect again is reward system, that is achievement. Because I found this article very interesting. So the hobbies keep on changing, and it's good if it's changing. They do not have to fixate, they need to keep experimenting, and they should be given enough. Okay, so you have switched it on from a separate phone. Okay, all right, that's okay.
So yes, definitely. You are hearing the lag as well. So I picked up another phone so that I can at least understand what is it that you are speaking.
Right.
I'm really sorry. I just had to kind of do
That's
with
okay,
the challenges
Namita. We
here.
face it every day.
And now, so Saakshi, that was informative as much as I got here. we need to understand the kind of problems that our culture comes with. And we also have to understand the child and the importance of patience here is what I'm understanding. And all
Right.
the games are all the games that you're talking about is basically interactive in nature.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know, me as an adult have huge problems understanding where the reaction is coming from. Why am I feeling
Correct.
sad when
Correct.
I am feeling so? Why am I
Right.
feeling upset when I'm feeling so? And it is only in the later phases that you really understand
Right.
that it may be for that particular reason or whatever. I can only understand how challenging it may be for children because decoding is
Right.
not happening there. There's only
Right.
reaction that is happening. That is what I understand from the conversation here. And it becomes double a challenge for the parents who are kind of trying to deal with
Right.
one way active
Correct.
method of kind of interacting with the children. So thank you so much, Saakshi. It was a beautiful, beautiful session.
Thank you,
And
Namita.
we would also urge our viewers here to please, please visit the Happy Little Minds that Saakshi is part of and see what she does. She does magic with children and she teaches you to do magic with children. And while you learn to
Thank you,
do that,
Namita.
please smile away. And if you can't smile, please get in touch with us. We help you smile broad and happy. Take care,
Right.
guys. See you soon
Thank you,
until the
Namita.
next
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you so much, Saakshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Namita. Thank you.